Hello, everybody. It is May 6th, and this is from Pen to Publishing with myself, Trevor Martens, of I Help You Write Things, and Rachel Small, editor and consultant. We thank you for coming in and hanging out with us today. The format, for the most part, is going to be a conversation, which means that you each are more than welcome to dive in, ask questions. We're both okay with interruptions. We know that with Zoom, interruptions come a little slower, so it can feel a little bit awkward, but there's no worries with that. If you want to try and use your hand icon as well, that's totally fine. We can catch that. But in the end, we're hoping this is a fruitful conversation because you're able to get answers to your questions, and we're able to share a little bit of what our experience has been from two kind of different sides of the from pen to publishing world. So on that note, Rachel, some of these people have met you before, others haven't. Do you want to introduce yourself, and we'll then I'll do the same.
Yes, yes, definitely. So, yes, I'm a book editor and consultant. I've been doing this for about 16 years. I'm freelance and I work mostly with self-publishing authors or some traditionally publishing authors who are seeking representation. I focus primarily on fiction, so literary fiction, women's fiction, commercial fiction, and also creative nonfiction, so memoirs or more self-help type manuscripts, stories that inspire people. That's really what drives me. So yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
the long and short of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Rachel. And I'm Trevor Martens. I founded I Help You Write Things about 3 years ago, and I work with mostly amateur writers, writers who have put off writing, have had too many self doubts to start writing, and I support them in not only developing like the mindset. That's really the primary way that I like to support people is like how to reframe and view art and its creation and the creative process. But I'm a 16-year English teacher, so I love to teach technique, provide analysis, and I do some editing as well and assessment. So that's why I think, as you can see, like Rachel's got 16 years kind of on one end, I've got 16 years on the other. And so it's almost a perfect match here for an interesting conversation. And so the topic is the three biggest challenges, and of course we want to identify those because a lot of you are in it right now, and I'm going to welcome you to share where your challenges are if and when they come up. And if we don't cover them, I'm sure Rachel and I would be fine discussing wherever you're at, because for a lot of us this is an uncharted road, or it's a road that we went halfway and we just didn't finish. And so if we can kind of light some lanterns along that road to show what it can look like, I'm hoping that we're doing a decent service to help everyone out with that. So, I don't know, Rachel, does that sound good to you? Sound like the plan?
Yes, definitely. Yes, as Trevor and
Okay.
I've kind of talked about, he's working with writers who are kind of in the thick of it, their manuscript's still in process and he does some of the editing, and I'm working with writers primarily once that manuscript is finished and then it goes on to the editing. So two sides of the coin.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mhm.
Well, let's dive into it. And I figured I would throw you a curveball right away, Rach, just so that we're not getting too scripty here. You work with people on the side where I want to get people to, and that is they've actually published. They've gone through the editing process, and I'm assuming some of yours have gone on to publish after that. What percentage of people that you end up working with do you know move on to publishing? Sorry, I
I
know it's a
couldn't give you
ballpark.
exact numbers, but yeah, I would say probably close to 85% go on to actually self-publish that book or get representation. Again, I'm mostly with self-publishing authors, but yes, once they've gone through that much editing, it's a lot easier to actually hit that publish button, so to
Yeah.
speak. There's no magic button, but
Well, like
yeah.
from the stats that I've seen, something like less than 10% of people who have a book idea get it to that point. And so that
Yes.
I take that as inspiring, but I'm even still a little put off by the idea that like maybe there's still 20% of people that go through all that work and that money and that time, and then they don't put it out there. Like that breaks my heart a little bit. But it's
It is. Yeah, and so many times it just comes down to mindset. That's definitely one of the hugest hurdles is the lack of confidence, or oh, I just have to make a few more revisions, or I'm just going to sit with it for a while, and then a little while turns into a year, turns into 10 years. I actually mentioned this in our last webinar, but I've worked with people who, yeah, have sat on their manuscripts for 10 years and are finally deciding to get it out there. So yeah, it's as much as I'm an editor, I want things to be as perfect as possible. I will also say, what, sometimes it's better to just put it out there, even if it's not your version of perfection.
Uh, That's a really good one.
Mhm.
And I absolutely want to dive into that because I think that I've come across so many people that just ask, well, when do I know when it's ready? I say, well, I don't know that there is a golden moment where all signs point to yes. You're lucky if you have somebody that in your life that steps in that you respect and just says, now is enough. But waiting for that, my sense is that waiting for that sense of like absolute knowing that I've edited it enough, it's ready enough, now I can do it. I think you've been waiting forever.
100%. Yeah. And I
Like,
mean, even if you decided to give it to another editor, they would probably edit it differently. One of my mentors said, yeah, the same editor will look at the manuscript a totally different way. I mean, the basics will be the same, but you can keep getting opinions and opinions, and that will go on indefinitely. So,
yeah,
oh, we got a few comments
absolutely.
here.
Yeah, we got a couple coming up here.
Perfection is the enemy of good. Yes.
Reminds me of a T-shirt I have. To write love on our arms, from To Write Love on Our Arms, a mental health organization. It says the world needs your presence, not your perfection.
I love
100%.
that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
100%. And that one of the latest perspectives that I soaked up was from Robert Rodriguez, the filmmaker, and he was saying, "Are you here to make like a work or a body of work?" And if you're somebody's
Hmm.
like, "Gosh, like like I actually want a few," like don't dawdle on the first one then, right? Like I love that perspective because who wants to just create once? Who wants to make one painting? Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes we have a purpose for a text, right? You want to pass on information to family. We all create for different reasons. But I love the perspective of a body because then it's like you're not hedging all your bets on one. Like
Yes.
it's and it's such a
Yes, and
small
it's
shift.
exactly. Yeah, it's sometimes okay to see your first book as a practice book. Maybe you don't like thinking of it that way, but to just go through that process and know what it entails, and then you build that confidence. Oh, I can do this. And then the next time it's a little better, and the next time a little better, and then you build. And yeah, like you said, Trevor, you build that body of work.
Oh, like one of the things I like to say too is like, or something that was brought to my table was like, what if you knew your 10th book was the one that was gonna like change the world? Right? Are you going to spend all that time on the on 1 to 9? Or are you going to get it to the point where you're satisfied and move on? It's
Mhm.
for some people, and I'm speaking to myself here. The people with people pleasing tendencies, with perfectionist tendencies, I think that can be a terrifying idea. That there will never be an absolute green light when this is perfect to launch. But here you are, you're getting permission. It's okay. You can put imperfect work out there. It's just part of the evolution and the growth process too, I think. Like Rachel, how many people have you worked with that have published multiple books, or like have you worked with many people that have come to you maybe with multiple books?
I would say probably 40 to 45% of the authors I work with are publishing more than
Wow.
once. Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Again, my numbers aren't carved in stone, but
Yeah.
yeah, once they get rolling with it, and a lot of them are career writers. But yeah, even some who just write kind of on the side, they are publishing multiple times. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Again, it's
amazing.
once you get into that groove, and some of them create their own imprints. They've built a team. We talked about this last time, building a team. Once you have the editors, the coaches, the designer, the marketing people all in place, then it's much easier to just hit go.
Yeah. And when you see these people's works for like the second or third or fourth time, do you notice growth in there?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
That's super, super interesting to see, really rewarding to see as well. Hmm.
Wild. Wild. Is it kind of across the board that the next work you see that development? I guess it would also matter how far apart you saw the works, but
Yeah, and I
I have
mean,
a
there's
sneaking
some
suspicion.
where if they're following, summer genre, if they're writing romance, it's more of a template. So you don't necessarily see the growth as much, but I mean, you still see their development as a writer the more that they write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I think that what's important to take from that is like, if you have multiple books, like each one's a different step for you. It's not like you're producing a lesser work. You're just producing the work based on your
Yeah.
experience and who you are today, right? And that's all you can do.
Mhm.
And then you move on to the next. Yeah, Shauna, come on up.
I'm not sure if I know how to ask the question, but that percentage, that what 10, 15, 20% that doesn't publish after all the editing, um, how or when does knowing it's done sink in? What is that in writing? In a painting, I can imagine, and it's kind of that point where you're like, done. I can't, like, one more dot won't isn't right. It'll ruin it. But with writing, what is that feeling? Where does it come from?
I mean, the feeling is, I'm sure that will be personal. But I think once it's gone through a proofread, you've had that final set of eyes, you've had that person look at it so carefully. So then you know that if you make any other changes, there's the possibility that that could have thrown a wrench in something. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly, but yeah, so to just have had that team of people look at it and you've been able to be hands off for a while, and then you can even go back and read it and be like, wow, that's when that feeling might happen. Some authors get that feeling when they unbox their books. That's a really big trend on social media. Unbox your book with me, or I'll unbox the book with you, and they see it, and you can see the emotion, and then that they're holding it, and I think that's a really, really special moment for a lot of authors.
Sounds
That's
like
awesome.
trust is involved very
Lots of
much with
trust.
the editors and that process to go. They've
Yes.
looked at it.
Yes,
Yeah,
there is a sense of needing to let go
Yeah.
and
yeah.
trust that it's in good hands, and that even in good hands, sometimes typos will slip through, or you might read it again. And say, oh, I wish I had done that differently, but you know what? It's still a good story, um, and being able to be okay with it not being perfect, even once it's out in the world.
Great response. Great response, Rachel. And I would say too, I've definitely met people who almost are sick of it by the end. That's like it's like been haunting them. It's been keeping them up at night. And it's just like I just have to get it out there. And again, giving yourself that permission to say, like, this is one of many. It's not gonna
Yes.
make or break me. Like just giving it its natural life cycle in your head, I think is probably a healthy approach to go. Yeah, Michelle, exactly. You
That's a good
can.
point, Michelle. Yes.
So,
Yes,
Denis,
and
what
that
did you
has
oh,
happened. I've
sorry.
seen authors do that, when they hit publish, and then, a reader might say, you know what, I noticed a few typos, and then they can easily take it back. And but again, you don't want to start messing with it too much. Just fixing typos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, Denis.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a follow-up to Shauna, and it's that sort of that when do you press publish, and so as a perfectionist with perfectionist um background, it might be really difficult. So does that team help you, I guess? I guess that's my question is do we trust the editors and the team we have around us to guide, especially some of us first timers who really are so not sure about all this, get that confidence to say, yeah, now is a good time to press the button. Like, so is that what you do with some of the first time writers that you work with, I guess, is my question.
Definitely, yeah. Again, yeah, lots of trust involved. And building that relationship with your editor, as we talked about last time. Especially when you're working on developing the story, the big picture elements. And oh, I lost it.
No, it's okay. But
um, but
like
yes, this
because
is sorry.
yeah, well, I was just gonna add in because it's your first time going through it. There's all that uncertainty of is this even a book? Who's gonna like it? paying somebody, a professional, you're not only paying them to help you with your book, you're almost offloading a little bit of that pressure on yourself, because now there's a second set of eyes, and it's their job to say, hey, listen, I think X or Y or Z needs to be done. And we talked about the relationship in the last call. I think that's why it's a huge part of it, is there's an element of trust. And again, not to say that they didn't miss something, not to say that 2 years later you catch something, you're like, oh, why did I make that character say that? But it's everything. I think everything's an imprint of who you are right there. And honest
Yes.
to gosh, everybody, like, art is a self-expression, and I'm counting storytelling as art. Our self-expression is totally based on who we are in this moment. If you sit on a book for 6 years, you're a different person 6 years from then. You're going to change. Odds are you could change the entire book. Time matters. You're producing it with who and what you have right now. Then move on to the next. Just let it go. It's like, I know it's hard. It's like a baby into the world, but art is a production of who and what you are. And if we keep stringing out who we are over that timeline, it might get to the point where the book means nothing to us. And what a shame would
That's a
that
really
be?
good point. Yes, really good point.
Like,
And I also wanted to add to that. I remembered what I was going to say. Um,
good.
so part of my job is to advise what I think the manuscript needs, and then it's ultimately up to the author to decide, do they have the budget for that? Do they have the time for that? And so that's where it's the collaboration happens. Like, okay, so here's your budget, here's what we can do. That might involve being okay with sacrificing certain things, but focusing on others, and that's where it can be a real back and forth between author and editor.
No.
Mhm.
The best thing is that you put a book out there, and if there is something glaring, like something shows up, you're like, I would not do that again. Well, congratulations. You just learned from your first book, which is exactly what you should be doing for your next work, right?
Mhm.
Like yeah, I think there's a million reasons just to get it out there, and all of which will serve you well going forward. The last thing that I would add to that, and then I guess the last thing I would add to this, like this idea of knowing when it's ready. I I'm a coach that encourages my writers to consider what was important to them to express. Like, what was it about that scene they wanted to get across? How did they want that character to come across? How quick did you want this scene to feel? If your story is based upon what your editor says, based upon what your beta readers say, if your story's hitting like you want it to, let it go. Don't look and say like, well, you could have added another character, or what, you could have added this twist. Well, but you didn't want to initially. Don't do that. Just, is it landing how you initially wanted to? Let that go out there. Get your feedback from the results from your readers and everyone. And hey, maybe you crank it out of the park. Maybe they say some things where you're like, oh, actually, yeah, I didn't make that happen like I wanted to do. That wasn't as scary as it could have been. Or yeah, you'll learn from that. But the only way we're going to start to get to, as artists, to trust our inner compasses is to get the art to where we think it's doing what we want it to do, take feedback on it, and then adjust accordingly, and then let her go. Just let her go. So I like turning that focus inward to, does this painting look how I want it to look? Does this song invoke the emotions that I want it to invoke? That's the question. It's not, is it good enough? Is it ready yet? It's just,
Mhm.
is it doing what I want it to do? And then the rest is just a conversation, a negotiation after that.
Because good enough is also very subjective, because one reader might really resonate with it. Maybe it changes their life. You just never know how it's going to affect the readers. And once you put it out in the world, you kind of have to wipe your hands of it, so to speak.
Yeah. That's the
Mhm.
cool thing about it too. It's just off there doing its thing. And you gotta go
Yeah.
focus on making new art, like you just put something out there. And I was just talking about this with my mastermind group. It was one of my groups, where when someone's reading your writing, like, they are literally nowhere else. When we're reading a story, we are in that story in that time. We're not thinking about laundry. We're not thinking about having to pick up the kids later. Like, you literally give people, you're filling in pieces of their life timeline, moments where they're just focused on your art and nothing else. Like, what a gift to give someone else's world. So like, just get it out there. Well, let's I was going to ask you a couple more things here, but this is going to just flow in as we needed to, I think. Um, if you have any surprise questions, feel free, Rachel, but I have a couple of surprise questions that I didn't tell you about. Because one thing I want to know, when you're working with a writer and they finally get through it, and they're done the edit and they publish it, do they always say it was worth it? Or what is like what is their reaction after they finally get it out there, to what the process was like, to like, are they glad they did it? Like, how do people usually respond when they finish?
That's a good question. There's usually a lot of relief. Usually a lot of wow, I had no idea that it would take this, this amount of time or this amount of energy. But there is a real sense of accomplishment around it. And again, that moment of holding the book and wow, I am a published author. That's the overwhelming feedback that comes back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good thing to remember. It probably will take more time than you think it will. Probably will take more energy. So just give yourself space around it. Don't give yourself arbitrary deadlines if you don't need to. But I'm sure Trevor can talk about this. The accountability. You know, writing schedules. Yeah, so maybe I'll throw it on over to you for that. Um, how do you advise writers to stay on track?
Yeah, it a great question. When I think there's a time and a place for a deadline, and maybe this will kind of segue us into our first big challenge spot, which is like that messy middle. That's one spot that I see so many people get lost. Like there's all this enthusiasm to start the project, and it's like, yeah, it's open. And the best part about just starting a story is that you can write anything you want. It's like it can go anywhere. It's open world, and there's so much joy in that. But then as you start to go and you start to put up parameters on this thing, and the tracks start to go in, you're like, oh god, you kind of write yourself into corners at times. Sometimes you actually have to change what you wrote because you you wrote yourself right off the rails. It's quite the journey. But I would say that deadlines are a great idea when you're really getting into that. I have to like into those pinching moments when it's like, I have to write my climax now. I have to write this last scene. I don't know how it was going to end, but giving yourself like a day, a week, when it's just a targeted, like you just got to do it. For those you just got to do it moments, it's never going to feel good and feel right, to get to those. But giving yourself a time deadline can sometimes really help just drive it through. I believe 99% of writers are excellent deadline procrastinators. Like so many people I work with, like it's like, oh, night before, that's when all the writing happens. And so use that, of that in yourself. If you're one of those people, set those deadlines. I'd say, like, I think that can be a helpful task when you're kind of just having to click the pieces together. The story's laid out, where it's going. You just gotta do it now. Do it even if you do it poorly, and then revise from there, I would say.
Yes, so that's a really good point. I think deadlines are probably even more important in the writing process than in the
Mm.
overall editing journey to publication process, because
Mm.
that's where things can get a little murky. Okay, how many rounds of revisions are we going to do? How long is design going to take? How, you're relying on some other people, but when it's just you and the writing, set yourself those deadlines. It'll be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You had said something there that I wanted to jump on, but it jumped out of my head too. I got too excited. So I'm sure it'll come back to me there. Um, yeah, so deadlines are really good. Now, when you were saying most people feel a relief when they publish, I think that there's some of the people that I know that are on this line perhaps have felt that as well. There's some anxiety around pressing that publish button, but there's also that relief that's felt. Has anyone came to you and said this was not worth it? Like all this work this was a big waste of time.
Never that. I've had writers say, oh, I really hoped for more sales or more traction or more visibility, but never that the process itself was a waste of time. Um, because generally they will come away with, I've really learned. Even if it was, I learned that this isn't how I want to be how I want to be spending my time, and that's okay. I'm still glad that I went through the process and figured that out. So
Okay.
I think any creative pursuit is never wasted time. That's my belief.
Yeah, and that's something I'm glad to hear that. I'm really happy to hear that, even if it's something they didn't want to repeat, because that's
Mhm.
something that we can use to kind of counter some of that self-talk that convinces us to bail out of the project. You know, it's like it's gonna be worth it. Just knowing that like everyone who gets through it says it was worth it. Like we're so good. We're so good at one daying our things. I don't feel like writing today. Waiting till I feel like it. You know, like we give ourselves so many outs to not do the work to get there that I think having counter narratives in our head, like, no, it'll be worth it. No, it doesn't have to be perfect. Some of these things can really help us move forward sometimes. And so, like, one of the things that I secretly want to get out of this conversation, Rachel, is I want to know what really like what makes someone choose to go through all this struggle rather than just like one day it. You know, like so many people one day dreams and what's important to them. And it's a don't get me wrong, like you said, most people are like, wow, that was way more work than I thought. Like we're getting something that's challenging beyond what we probably know is challenging if it's our first time going through it. So like what is the quality or what is the thing that helps some people say, oh, I'm going to take that discomfort and I'm just going to write anyway and I'm going to do it versus finding a reason not to, whether however they want to justify it, it's a reason not to. So that's running in the back of my head, just as a heads up. We don't have to answer it right now. I'm hoping by the end to have more intel on it, but it's a curiosity of mine. But let's get to that messy middle because we promised we talk about three areas, and my goodness, the messy middle is that for a reason, and I think that's where a good chunk of those 90% of people who don't finish get lost. Because it sounds like we're losing about 20% maybe after editing. Like they 20% are falling off there, which means there's a huge chunk that aren't even making it to the editing stage. And I know these aren't people that you come across all the time, but do you have like obviously these are the people that I work with right now. But what's been your experience with people who like do people come to you and ask like, God, how do I get this book done? Or like, do they share their struggles with getting their first draft done with you at all?
Yes, because I am working mostly with finished drafts, but I will have conversations with authors earlier in the process. They're like, I'm um, struggling with this part of it, and I just need a few months, and then I'll come back to you. So there is, and often it's just, oh, there's this one area. It's very often one area of the book, usually in the middle. Most authors that I've seen tend to know how it starts, how it ends. Uh, and it with both fiction and nonfiction. So that's generally when I will either recommend writing groups, coaching, other tools that come before the actual editing process. So Trevor, I'm sure that you have some experience with this.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes I think that as coaches and editors and professionals, we attract people that just like we end up working with people that we match up well with. And for whatever reason, I maybe because I'd consider myself a trying to be retired perfectionist and people pleaser. I work with a lot of people who just do have doubts about their own ability, and because in writing there's no like gold standard. There's no you can't punch it into a program and it says for sure this is perfect, it's ready, and it's going to sell well in the world. There's nothing that exists like that. That uncertainty seems to be the real killer for a lot of people. Like uncertainty if people will like it, uncertainty if the idea has merit, uncertainty if they're going to be able to finish it, like uncertainty if they're even worthy to write a story that they're going to put in the world. Like that seems to float around a lot. And if you're somebody who gets it seems as though if you get caught up in that and you start listening to that story and ruminating on it and answering the questions, like, God, who am I to deserve this? Or like, you don't deserve this. And you start saying, well, yeah, you're right, I haven't published. If you start going along with those kind of thoughts, for me, it just seems like you bury yourself in your own grave at that point. So I would say one of the biggest parts of that messy middle, like figuring out how to get your story done, is you're not you're not only dealing with self-doubt the whole way through, like, God, who am I to do this? Is anyone going to like it? But then there's the actual uncertainty of the story itself. Like, where's this going? Like, how do I wrap up this plot line? Like, what's this character going to say? And I don't know about you, Rachel, but in my life, I can only handle so much uncertainty. Like if my wife comes up to me and says, "Oh, Trev, how are we going to do this? We have to tackle this and this and this." I'm just like, I don't know the answer to all these questions. It's too much. It's too much. And so I think that for some writers, if they really are taking in all of that, like being aware of all of that uncertainty, it can absolutely sink the boat
Yes,
sometimes.
and Yeah, I mean, even after say done an assessment, and there's still so much of that that's the mental game, right? The mindset. And that's when I encourage them to get out of isolation. You know, writing is such an isolating
Yeah.
activity, and some people love that. I mean, a lot of writers are introverts. But I really encourage community, whether that is, you know, a community like Trevor's or just an accountability buddy or you know, so the obstacle that you might be facing in the middle of your story, maybe it's actually a fairly simple fix, but you're just so zoomed in on it that you can't see. And so to just get a little bit of perspective can make all the difference. So
Great point.
yeah, make friends in this community. It's so, so valuable.
There's that's such a great point, and there's so much. I think there's enough research out there to show that kind of who you surround yourself with, you kind of the tide rises with like with the size of everyone's ship. That's actually not the metaphor at all, but the idea is that if you have a bunch of people that are into writing too, like there's just there's a ton of perks with surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you want to do. And yeah, accountability I think is huge, right? Like it's but it's also getting some feedback. Like we do write alone, but like it's art, man, and art's meant to be experienced. And the kickback that you get when someone gets your piece or like goes, oh, when they read your piece, I think I almost feel like that's like completing the cycle of the art. You know, like you create it, you put it out there, then it gives back to you. You get to see the impact it had on other people, and that motivates people to keep writing. Like, people on this line here that have written that. Michelle, can I call you out? Yeah, like Michelle put together a novella just through one of my writing groups. Like she just kept showing up and writing and writing, and then all of a sudden, oh, look at that! I have something I can publish now too. And so, if you're somebody who I think who struggles with that self doubt or uncertainty and gets mired in it, one, accountability buddies, like you said, Rach. Two, sharing it with people, like sharing it with other writers to get some feedback. Just and it'll also let you know if you're off base. And the more you do that, the more you get that certainty of like, okay, look, yeah, this is working. It's doing what I wanted it to do. And then you can start to trust yourself a little more. Because I think that's that self-trust to get through it, man. Because I know, Rach, we talked about this. I asked you, I'm like, well, what's one of the traits of the people who get through their draft? And I think you had said something about like they're pretty disciplined about it. Yeah,
Yes, I mean, it doesn't mean, you know, but they might have slumps, but ultimately they are driven by that goal to publish. And they sit down. Um, yeah, a friend of mine, she talks about how she learned this at a writing retreat with a well-known author. I can't remember who it is now, but even if you go to your writing space every day, and even if you just sit in your chair and no words come, you stay there for the allotted amount of time. So your butt is in the seat every day at the same time, if that's what it takes to build the habit for you.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that concept. Here, I want to address that too, but I saw Michelle's pop up as well. It's amazing to hear random feedback from people, and it can be a turning point for you in the story. It can give you that sugar
Sugar
high,
high.
totally sugar high. I
Love
love
that.
that. Ain't it the truth though? You know, ain't it the truth? Like it's very satisfying and helpful. Um, but that idea of like showing up even if you don't write, when we get into it, when we get into fear and doubt, I feel like we can sometimes just like we write ourselves off. You know, we give ourselves the excuse to get out of it. Like times I've woken up early to work out, and I just like, I have the smallest reason not to, and then I don't. Right? Like I'll write that story for myself 9 out of 10 times, and I regret it after, and I try and do better the next day. That's all there is to it. I'm like, no, I didn't like that. I want to do it again. I think that when it comes to writing, it does seem as though there's a bit of that same thing, like to do it even though you don't feel like it. And I love what you said. Like even if you just stare at the screen for 15 minutes, whatever your time is, at least you did what was in your control. You showed up. You made 15 minutes of your day. You prioritized those 15 minutes more than anything else you would have spent your day on. And like you made sure it happened. And what I find so inspiring about that is that we can all squeeze 15 minutes out of our day. If writing's a passion for you, if it's a dream, like, yeah, you could get up 5 minutes earlier and go to bed 10 minutes later at the very most extreme. But I'm certain we can all find a little bit of time if we've set ourselves up for it to at least sit there and think about the work in some way. Because I that does seem to be a major separating point for the writers that I work with those who get through it eventually, and those who don't, they've listened to themselves, like they got railroaded enough that they just kind of, they're like, well, I think because I hadn't been able to write for a few days, I'm not meant to write this now. They tell themselves that story. And then they might start a new work. They might do some research. They might go take another class. They might learn something else. So they'll be like productive. Yeah, I call it productive procrastination. Like you're doing something, but you're not doing that thing that you really wanted to do. That if we pinned you down and tortured you, we're not torturing anyone here, but if we tortured you, you would say you'd rather have that book done. And so I really like that idea of just being mindful that you don't even have to do anything. Just make sure you're giving the time. We can all give ourselves a certain amount of time a week. It doesn't have to be daily even, but I think that's a big piece going forward.
Hmm. Yeah, and even having that mindset going in that it's not always going to be glamorous. You know, you see it so much in the movies. Oh, the writing life, and they're somewhere in Italy sipping espresso, and yeah, you might have a few days like that, and that's amazing. But that's not the reality of the nitty-gritty work of writing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, good point. And see, that's what I like about a call like this. It's like for some people, it might be very validating to hear that, because they might say, I want to be a writer, but gosh darn, there are days I do not want to write. It's like, hey, guess what? Normal. That's okay. It's 100% normal and okay. It's like, and then what do you choose to do after that? You know, it's totally up to
Mhm.
you. One, I think, I really think it's this uncertainty process that gets the middle really screwed up, like how to do the story. Are you worthy of it? All that seems to be one of the biggest issues. I think too, you had brought up the fact that some people actually go through everything and still don't put their book out there. And I wonder, man, I get the sense that there are some people that are just absolutely terrified of actually achieving their goals and actually getting seen and putting themselves out there, you know? Like I
Mhm.
see some people that are so amazingly talented, and it's like for some reason the brakes get pumped right at the last minute. I'm like, you know, like so it makes me wonder. I don't know if you see anything like that where you can't really see a reason they're not putting it out there, but they find a reason not to.
Well, and this is also one of the challenges. I mean, we can touch on it now, that the edit overwhelm. You know, there's some cases where the manuscript might come back with so many edits and so many big picture notes that it just sits there and it never really leaves, like it never progresses even to the next stage of editing. You know, I try to work through that with authors, but sometimes it's just, oh, you know what, I'm just too busy right now. It's too much. I'll look at it later, and then that day never comes. So,
Yeah. Oh
mhm.
man. And that fits the bill. That fits the bill. The it may, maybe we can actually lean into that for a moment here. Well, let this thing just kind of flow. So when people get overwhelmed by the edits, is it like in what, I don't know if you've tapped into how many heads you've tapped into, but is it like the number of edits? Is it like the type of edits, or have you seen it be a number of things? Like what is it that some writers just get kind of like blindsided by and get completely overwhelmed by?
Well, I think a lot of it is, okay, I don't know where to start because there might be so many different things that need to happen. So what I've started doing to make it easier is, you know, here are the top things. Maybe it's just 3 or 4 issues that when you make these changes, it will change everything. And that will make every other revision so much easier. So just, I think
Mm,
sometimes it's a lack of direction.
mm,
So if you're working with an editor, you feel free to ask them like, hey, can you give me some guidelines about what I should focus on first? Or, you know, kind of tackling the edits right away as you're going through. You know, I always advise, you know, please read my notes and then read the notes in the manuscript and then set it aside for a couple days and let it digest. Make some notes for yourself about how you want to approach the revisions and then go from there. And it might look like, okay, so this pass, I'm going to focus on the timeline issues, and that's it. I'm just going to go through and make sure that's
mm,
okay. And then I'm going to go
mm.
through again and work on this character's issues. And, you know, or maybe you want to do a few at once, but whatever it takes to not get overwhelmed and to feel like it's still a step by step achievable process.
Yeah, that's great.
Mhm.
That's great advice, Rachel, because I can only imagine someone's put so much work into their piece. Like they had people read it, their family said it was perfect, and then they get a 10-page report of like a 10 like or 100 pages of red marking on it, right? I know for a lot of people that it can they're like a personal offense can flare up, you kind of get defensive. It's your baby, right? It's like someone just criticized your kid. And so I like that couple day approach, like let it digest, see where you're at. And I think too, like you, man, at the beginning, you really got my head going when you talked about how you could really give this to you could always give your piece to a new editor and they're going to find something to say about it. And like, if like just knowing that's a reality, everybody, it means like you're never going to get that perfect golden, like, oh, now it's perfect and no one will ever criticize it and have anything to say about it moment. It's impossible. Because I know most of you can keep editing your pieces to death. You can edit to the end of time. And so like
Even to
yeah.
the detriment. I've seen cases where I've loved something, and then it comes back to me, and the author has removed it because they've just were questioning so much. And oh, where did that go? That was so good,
Oh, oh.
So yeah, you don't want that to happen. And I also advise sometimes, because I use track changes. I don't know if you're familiar with the program, where it's all the markup and it can really look like red pen all over the page. And I'll just say, look at it in simple markup. Or, accept all the changes and save it as a separate document. So you just see the clean copy and then you can read it, and then you're not even really thinking about the edits that were made. You just, oh, you know what? I'm not sure about that line. I'm going to change it. And it can really open up brain space to not see the marking.
Really nice. Really nice.
Mm.
And like I say, like because in my groups when I work with people, we do give each other feedback. Like people give feedback on writing. We try and keep it positive unless someone's requesting, like, hey, did I do this? And then we can be critical if we want. It does seem like was I going with that when I got thinking? Read your manuscript out loud. Yeah, Doris, absolutely, by the way. A
Super
great way to
helpful.
a great way to catch errors. But
Mhm.
but if you're writing something and again, you know what your intention was, going through your editor's feedback, you can keep that in mind. So if the editor's feedback's like, oh, it's okay, that's not what I was trying to do here. Like if you can recognize where their feedback's not in alignment with what your goal was, it is okay to not follow everything the editor says at that point. If you know it's like for how you wanted the art to come across. And just that fact alone, like that should give you some should give you an opportunity to look at that feedback with less and not take it as personally, not take it like I'm a failure. It's just like, okay, this is one person's interpretation, how they thought it might look, how it thought it might go. You still are an active editor of the editor, almost in some way, deciding what's there and
Yes.
what's not. Rachel, are editors deeply hurt and damaged by that process?
Oh, yes, yes, deeply. Uh, no, I always say, like, please feel free to use these edits as a launching pad. If you like something that I've done, run with it. If you don't, reject it. Or maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe you think, oh, I like that idea, but I didn't actually like how you worded it. But so I'll do this. And most editors will never take offense to that. And you can also call your editor out. I've had great conversations with authors where, I just wasn't that clear in a comment. And so they were ruminating on it and even getting kind of angry. And then we have a conversation like, oh, sorry, that wasn't very clear. I actually meant this. And then that
Mm,
opens everything
mm,
up. So we are fallible as well, and very open to conversation.
yeah, what I'm hearing from this is just a reminder to trust yourself and to trust your art, and you know what you wanted to do. Like imagine if you just if like if you had asked if you made like a mistake in a comment and someone didn't question it, they just assumed it and changed it and ruined a scene after that because they just assumed you were right instead of them. And
Yeah.
I think for a first time writer, they're probably a little more susceptible to that because they're doubting themselves the whole way through, right? It's like, well, you're the professional. So Denny, this actually kind of goes back to you a little bit. When you give it off, you do still have a responsibility, I think, to stand up for your work and your intention. But to like a conversation, I think is a great way to go. I wanted this to come across. I didn't care about that. And then you can talk about what that can look like and how that I might impact a reader, but let's say don't abandon your baby yet. Maybe is a good way to look at it there. if that makes sense.
Yes, it's that you do have to trust the professionals, but ultimately trust yourself, trust your message. And yes, we're just here to help it get through as clearly as possible. And if we haven't done that, then then that's our mistake. Yeah.
And let's see, I love the relationship aspect of this. Okay, we're getting a couple chats here. Let's check them out real quick. My little ego is always hurt when I get the doc back. So when I do exactly what Rachel, so then I do exactly what Rachel suggested. I wait a few days and pick apart, edit it, start with. I think it's okay to give yourself that time to acclimatize. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
Katrina reminds me of one of my first tattoos. I trusted the artist and ended up with the tattoo that doesn't look how I want it. Oh goodness. Yeah, it's a funny thing, man. But isn't that all relationships, right? It's some give, it's some take, it's some trust, it's some like assertiveness. Like you find that balance. And for some, that responsibility can maybe feel overwhelming, but you can also look at it as an empowerment thing. You have a say. You're allowed to trust yourself. And I think that trust aspect is such a underdeveloped one, maybe sometimes, or that you have to kind of work through the piece a few times, work through a couple books to start to really harness that trust and to
Yes.
get there.
Yes, and that goes back to just, when getting your first work out there and building on it, because you're just going to keep building that trust, building that confidence, building as you're building your body of work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Mhm.
like my goodness, there is a world where creating art can be as enjoyable to create as it is to edit, as it is to revise, because there's nothing on the line then. I think that once you get that sense of confidence and trust, you know that there's nothing else on the line. It's just, can we together with me and my editor, can we make the best book possible? And that's just a cool project to strive behind. I think that's a beautiful ideal to aim for. So the one aspect that we haven't actually, is there anything else on this one because I know this is really your domain, getting edits back to people and then just having them freeze up or vanish on you, or like how often do people not even like how many do you see people that walk away after they've got the piece edited and they never, as far as you know, take the edits up?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, and that generally happens at the developmental stage. Yes, where they just completely abandon the project. And that's always disappointing to see for their sake, because I know they've already put all of that time and energy in. So that, yes, again, as much as possible, I try to talk through it with them and see what we can do to make the process less overwhelming.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really good. And like small steps, just like if when you're writing, yeah, show up for 15 minutes, show up for half an hour twice a week, whatever you're set, whatever it is, just show up for the minimum that you can do. When you're editing too, it sounds like just take bite-sized pieces. You're not going to be able to do everything at once all the time, but choosing a way to edit or a character to edit or a spot, it sounds like that can really help with that overwhelm.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, does anyone want to chime in with experiences they've had with overwhelm or anything?
Yeah, we were gonna let more people talk. I'm sorry. Yeah, Michelle.
Um, sometimes what I've done with an edit, hey Rachel,
Hi.
when it's in, like especially in a big doc, right? Like except for my novella, my manuscripts tend to be in that, 80 to 100,000 word document. So it's big, right? It's a good size. It is overwhelming. And I often find, like you said, picking one thing to center on. So sometimes, because my ego is still a little bruised, I'll pick the punctuation. Like if it's a copy edit, right?
Mm.
Like that type, or like sometimes you have like a hybrid that's a little development, a little copy, like, a little bit of both. I'll pick like, you know what? I'm gonna do all the spelling and punctuation, like the grammar, because that doesn't hurt my little ego, my little heart, right?
Yeah.
So, and then all of a sudden you've cleared off, like think of that, like in a 100,000 word doc, right? You've cleared off a ton of track changes and a ton of your, especially in Word, your comments, right? Like a ton of stuff is now clear. And then I find I'm more likely to actually read the comments, like the actual like development part of the comments, right? Or the suggestions, and pay a little bit more attention because there isn't as much stuff going on the page, right? And
That's a
but
really
yeah,
good perspective.
I think that is a really smart thing to do, is kind of pick whatever it is, the grammar, a character, even one time I had a development edit come back and they're like, this scene doesn't work, kind like for various reasons, right? So I was like, you know what? I actually took that scene, cut it out of the doc, copied it and pasted it into its own doc, because I was like, I can't do this with all this red stuff on the page. And it just made me calm down, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
to not see
Well-
all that stuff. And then I was able to rewrite that scene. And honestly, I think it ended up turning out really well. And I was really happy with it. But it was just cleaning, like almost cleaning the desk off, right? Like when you got too much crap on your desk, sometimes it's hard to think. And
Yeah, so you're clearing the mental space as you
Yeah.
physically clear the manuscript.
Yeah.
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 yeah,
That's
so I think
excellent.
those are all great ideas, because honestly, I've used them all. So
Mm.
thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. And Shauna, we'll get to you in one sec here. What I'm hearing here is that as writers, one of our jobs might be to just get to the point where we can take our own bite-sized next step. Like whatever we
Yes.
need, however we need to set it up, just like I could just do the punctuation today. That's cool. Right? Like
Mhm.
any step is better than no step. And so finding like what your smallest, most manageable step can be might be a great way to kind of keep progressing in whatever way that is. And so, Michelle, that was awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah. Shauna.
And then Norm.
Oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
I can see myself using that tip, Michelle, for sure. I'm just curious if when you finish your book, and you're like, okay, it's done. Just the first draft, just that writing draft. Is it recommended to take some time before you send it off to the developmental editing? Or to have like that the developmental editing, or you don't wait to send it, you send it, but there's a good amount of time before you get it back.
Like, are you asking, do you recommend waiting and just sitting with it before sending it to the editor?
Yes, and like if that's a good idea or not. Also, just considering when you do get it back and it's got so much marking on it and it's
Oh,
fresh from
yes.
your,
Yes, in that case, definitely. I always recommend taking a few days to sit with it once the edits come back. In terms of when you're sorry?
before, like you've just finished it, so it's like a
Yes.
fresh right, and
Yes.
yeah.
So, and that really depends on the process you've been through. Have you had any beta readers? How do you feel really good about it? I tend to recommend, you approach the editor when you feel it's gone as far as you can take it.
Okay.
That's kind of my guideline, but that'll look different for everyone.
Yeah.
And then you might want to start with an assessment, which is that very general kind of hands off, and then that can give you an idea of, okay, maybe it's not ready for developmental editing yet, or maybe I want to run it by my writing group again. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Because this is Shauna, thank you for the question, by the way, because this is like we're landing into the one area we didn't cover, which is like the
When is
third
it
area,
ready?
the middle of the three areas that we see the biggest issues are, is like when you've done that first draft, it's like, okay, well, when is it ready for an editing, and like what type of edit does it need? So that Shauna, that's a great question. And Rachel, did you say that Norm also had something?
Yes, I saw Norm
Yeah.
had his hand up there.
Okay, I'll make this quick, Norm, then we'll get to you. Sorry. If you used to feel, oh, sorry, a few things going on. Okay, here, Katrina, I'll get to yours in a sec. My brain is full of too many thoughts right now at the moment, because I really appreciated that request from Shauna, and so just to break it down a little bit for a second, because I think there's a few things that'll be good for us to talk about here, Rach. Do you find that, because you said you've taken the manuscript as far as you can take it, what does that involve for you? Like if someone's going to ask, well, what do you mean by that? What would you tell them that means?
Well, so what you were kind of talking about earlier, Trevor, is it hitting the points you want to hit? Does it convey, do you feel it conveys what you want to convey to the reader? Do you feel, or even if, maybe you're at the point where I know it's not there yet and I can't, like, I now need some support.
That's so good.
And sometimes you might not know what kind of support you need. And so I do help with this. If an author approaches me and they're not sure what type of editing they need, we can have a discussion about that. I might do a quick assessment of the work. And you know what? You might be ready for copy editing, actually, or you need the full developmental edit, or maybe just keep writing for now. So that's something that you can ask an editor to help you with.
Yeah, that's great. I like those two scenarios. One, you've got it to where it's doing what you think you want it to do for the most part. And I think you said this in our last call. Like there are times if you know you want to get it assessed, that you don't have to get all the punctuation. You don't have to dot all your I's and cross all your T's. But the story should be out there where you want it. And then you can decide on what that next step might be. Or you get there and you hit that roadblock, and then it's the SOS time. It's like, I just need someone to look at this to help me see where to go. Like we both meet with clients. Like I love working one-on-one with somebody at that point, even in like an hour discussion, I think can be a really helpful hour spent just to kind of talk through that. And then you're not, the nice thing about booking, of finding somebody and just booking like a session with them, is that you're not waiting for that manuscript to be gone. It's not out of you're not waiting for it to come back afterwards. It's often way cheaper, because sometimes, like you had said before, Rachel, if you're just on your own, that manuscript is right up against your face. And so if you can just like break it off and share it with somebody else that has a mind for story, it can really save you so many. It'll probably be one of those conversations where you're like, oh, how did I not see that? Or that's so obvious. Yes, that's it. And that's the nice thing again about reaching out to community. You don't have to pay somebody. You can absolutely have a writer friend that you just sit down with and be like, okay, what am I missing here? and take that step to reach out. I think that's absolutely huge. When would you say, Rachel, if someone's trying to push it as far as they can, and because I think if we were to go take a step back and identify the challenge here, it's one, when is it done? Two, what the heck do I do with it when I think, if and when I think it's done? And I think like challenge one, when is it done? I think it's I think we're on the same page there a little bit, where it's like, well, once it feels like it's doing what you want it to do, or you've hit that wall and you're like, I just don't know what to do now. And I want help. I want help. So like, I think identifying that point is good. If you're somebody, however, I'm going on a tangent here, I'm sorry. And then we'll get to you right after this, Norm. I'm great at tangents. If you're somebody who is trying to minimize the amount they have to spend to get the book done, are there steps, like what would you say someone should do to get the book as ready as they can? Like you had mentioned beta readers, which is essentially having somebody read it and give you feedback. Is that something that you'd recommend? Or what other things have you seen authors do to try and get it as ready as they can to maybe skip the assessment, skip the assessment and get right to maybe a line/developmental, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so writing communities, writers groups, that's a great way to do it. Beta readers can be really helpful. The thing with beta readers, you want to be selective, because then you might end up with too many cooks in the kitchen type scenario, because you are just going to get a ton of different kind of feedback. Just like I said earlier about, every editor will give you different notes. Your readers are going to give you different notes. And so if you're at a place where you're kind of unsure about the story and then you get all this feedback, that can be also very overwhelming.
Another reason to know what you're trying to do with your story. That'll help you kind of not get blown in the wind by all the different beta reader comments, I think, too. Because at least you can sort through some of it. So, well, I'm not trying to do that, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not trying to write Harry Potter, I'm trying to write my own thing, like that's a great point to be choosy with that.
Yeah. And also just one-to-one calls, mini assessments where, okay, you're having a specific problem, like this is the issue. Can we get on a call and talk it through? That can be a more affordable option than going through a whole assessment as well at the beginning.
Yeah.
If you're just looking to see where you can what the best next step would be.
I'd say like I'd highly recommend that if you're not sharing your work with anyone the whole way through, because like it's gonna be so close to your face. So that's really good. Now, Norm, I am so sorry. I I have a butterfly attention span sometimes. Would you mind coming on and asking your question?
Yeah, and I apologize for coming late. I think I screwed up the time difference. But anyway, hi Rachel. And I think this is the end of the hour, isn't it? So I'll try to be succinct.
It's okay.
I guess it's
Problem.
partly a comment, partly a question. As Rachel knows, I had a draft. She edited it, and then I got beta readers last year, and that worked great. And they came back with some feedback that gave me something to work with to revise something, which I'm doing now. But I sort of have this feeling of like, when do I get off this wheel of like, okay, so I wrote it, I'm going to get feedback. Do I go back to the beta readers? And I think I'm going to answer my question, then you can tell me what you think. I think the segment of the novel that has changed, that bit I'm going to go to particular people about and say, here's context for what this is. What do you think of these changes? And also I need some subject matter like experts on what I've gotten into, which I'm going to have to dig from somewhere. But what I'm saying is I don't want to go through, I'm putting limits on going back to beta readers because I'll never get off this.
Yep.
Like I want to finally get to the next point of whether it's literary agent or approaching small literary presses here in Toronto. I don't know quite yet, but I can't keep doing this. It's too much, like now is it okay? Now is it okay? Now is it okay? I think I'm not going to do that. I think I'm going to go be directed to go to particular people and say, here's what I've done. What do you think? And then I'm just going to have to be a big boy and say, I'm done.
Yep.
I love, yes, it's so true. It's so easy to get caught up in that wheel. But I love the idea of the parameters around the specific issue. Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Great call. Then Norm, the replay will come out after. I think we probably talked a lot about some of what you're bringing up at the beginning too.
Well,
which
I'm
is
sure
nice.
I apologize for coming in late.
No need to. I just wanted to let you know so that you could definitely check that out as well. But I think too, like just you knowing your story and what you wanted it to do, like because man, the beta reader cycle can be dangerous too, because sometimes it's nice to get that good feedback. Sometimes it's nice to like, oh, I just like, okay, more reassurance and like, but then that we could stall out and cycle out in that sometimes too. So I think I agree with Rachel. It's great to put parameters on what you're tackling, and for you're like your intuition. You're like you're like, yeah, this is enough. And if you are going to go to an editor, give them something to work with. Give them something to do. If it's perfect, what are they going to do? Give them something to, make them earn that money. Make them earn that money. So like,
Thank
no,
you.
yeah. Well, thanks for your question. Sorry it took so long to get to you. Babble.
Alex, did you have a question? I saw your hand for a minute there.
I don't know if you can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, it was just from before when Michelle was talking about how she prioritizes her editing. So it was more about just giving my own experiences on that, but we're past that now. So
oh, that's okay.
Yeah, give us one.
Well, because you were saying before about pushing back on the editor. So full disclosure, Rachel is my editor as well. Yeah, there was this one scene in the story that I published many years ago, and she suggested that we remove it because nothing was happening in the scene in terms of the narrative. It wasn't pushing it forward, and there was no great character development or anything like that. But I knew why I had put the scene there, and it was one of my favorites. But it was more than a darling. It was actually symbolic of something for me, and I didn't feel the need to argue it, so I left it in. And so I was just to say that I followed a lot of what she said, and Some of it I actually changed wholesale, as she said. Some of it I actually asked her later on, like, I don't understand exactly what's not working for you. I understand what you wrote. I just don't get how to change it in the story. Other things I actually push back, as she was saying, Michelle, before, it's a little bit of an ego thing. Like, it's not that you're hurt, but it's more like, but why? No, kind of like an instinctive sort of reaction. And then like after a few days, or even just letting it go, don't work on it for a little bit, and then coming back, rereading the notes, you go, oh, I think that's what she meant. So you just got to let the dust settle a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just to say that yes, it's a back and forth, and it's a conversation, and it's being open-minded. You go, okay, why is she saying this? She's trying to help me, obviously. So what's her point? What did I miss? Can we find a middle ground? Maybe I don't have to do exactly what she said. And like she was saying before, like maybe you just kind of use the idea, but you don't use it as she said she thought it was going. But yeah, you can also push back completely. And I've had good feedback after I published from people who they didn't say like, oh, I didn't like this scene. So I think it can also be a personal opinion, like
100%.
about if something
100%.
works or not. So probably other people would think the same thing that Rachel did about that scene, but I didn't get anyone saying, it was a bit slow here.
Yeah.
Of those people who did come back to me about the story. So yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
so good.
it's such a good point, Alex. And I feel like there's it's like both author and editor kind of set their ego aside and come together to make what's going to be best for the reader at the end of the day. But yeah, if you have something that's symbolic, and then maybe it resonates with other people, and that one editor just didn't happen to see it. Again, we're coming at it with our professional opinion, but we're still only one reader. So that's important to keep in mind as well.
100%. 100%. Well said. And Alex, even if someone had, thank you so much, Alex, for sharing that. That was very valuable. And if someone had come back and be like, I didn't like that scene, you'd be like, well, I did, and it's my book. So like that's what it comes down to. Rich, like you said, it's for the reader. And when absolutely when we're editing, we're making sure that the reader can pick up what you're putting down. But in the end, like it's all I like the perspective of we're trying to do what's best for the art, best for the story, and what's best for the story is that the reader does understand what it's trying to say. So I guess it's chicken and egg there, but it's a great point. It's not about either ego. It's not about the editor being right, not about the writer being right. It's just what are we making here? That's what's so beautiful about this thing. So I love it. I love this work in this world. Well, I think we addressed everything there, didn't we? Did we do it, Rach?
I think we did. Oh, thanks for that, Michelle.
Yeah, this was so helpful. It's a whole new world. I don't have a. Oh, awesome. Well, Michelle, if you end up looking for one, I know a guy. But maybe I think we've covered the bases, but have any that we left said we stirred up some questions out there that we didn't address about a spot where you're stuck in your own journey right now. Because the whole point of this thing was to kind of light lanterns along the road so you can see from beginning to end what that journey looks like, the hills, the valleys. Is there anything that we've stirred up that anybody would love to just quickly get our feedback on? Yeah, Denny.
Me, I like to give comments. uh, but I really appreciate the normalization that you are offering to some of those things, like the difficult middle and all of that. Like, and Michelle, thank you very much for how you review some of those edits and the overwhelm, just the idea of the overwhelm. And I have an ego too, and so I know that has to be checked. But I like hearing it from all of you because it normalizes the whole process and it makes it feel like there's nothing wrong with any of that. And so I just want to say thanks for that. That was great.
You're very welcome, Dave. Thanks for the words. Thanks for the words.
Yes,
Okay.
again, yeah, thank you for that comment. It's just when you're writing in your bubble and you don't realize that it is normal and that other authors are going through the same types of struggles, that's the real value of writing community.
Yes, because if we're already on the fence, Alex, I saw your hand go up, but if we're already on the fence of getting blown out, and quitting and throwing in the towel, at least knowing, oh, this is normal. And like what I tell people, man, the more stressed you are about this book, the more it means to you. If it didn't mean anything to you, there would be no stress around getting it out there. So congratulations, you have an activity, a thing, a creation in your life that is meaningful. You know, many people would like, that's almost all we need as humans, is to have something of meaning and value. So the larger your resistance, the larger your doubt, the larger your fears, the larger the gift is that you have for the world. And so like that's hopefully you can take something, if you start to get all that doubt and that, just remember, oh, actually, this is just a sign that this is incredibly important. How lucky am I? So that'd be a reframe that I'd love for people to take with them. Alex.
I was just wondering about middles, since you brought it up again. About the part when you said to sit down at your workspace for the allotted time, even if you don't write. Because I'm very good at procrastination. I was just wondering, and also middles are usually very hard. I'm good at brainstorming, research, ideas. And I'm good at figuring out where I'm going. So what's the end? But the middle is usually the hardest part for me.
Yep.
And when I say the middle, not like, 3 chapters in, I mean, literally like the actual 1/3 in the middle.
Okay.
And then once I get the ball rolling for the middle and I figure out the end, it's kind of sort of, I know what I'm going for. And then I can sort of pair off what's not getting me to the end. So do you think if I sit in my workspace, even if I'm stuck, like for like, I don't know how many days or weeks it happens, like, would that help? Because my problem is I actually stop for a while. I go, okay, I just need to like do other things. And then I come back like 2 months later. I don't like sit with it. You know what I mean? Like at the moment that I'm stuck, I
Yeah.
actually completely let it go and come back later to it.
Okay. Let me give you two perspectives here. And then Rach, please feel free to dive into, because I know I'm sure you have them as well. That feeling of being stuck is, I don't know what to write next. That is uncertainty. When we are creating new things, brand new things, we can't know where they're going because they're brand new. We're making a brand new model, never before seen piece. And so sometimes when we hit that wall and that frustration comes up, if you're an astute studier and you can do lots of research and planning, it feels so good to just like take a half step back and be like, I'll just do some planning right now. So you don't have to sit in that discomfort of the uncertainty. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. You want to take 2 months off? That's not bad. We're not going to label that way. But if you want to work through the uncertainty, just check your mind frame about your frame of mind about it. It's like, I'm stuck. This isn't going anywhere. Or is this God, I wonder what happens next. And then you give yourself a timer for 5 minutes and write a maybe next scene. And if it sticks, great. If it doesn't, well, you did your 5 minutes of work for the day, crumple it up, toss it. Next day, maybe this happens next. Because what you want to be doing is asking for your creativity to fill that uncertainty. You're making something new. And so the question is so important, because your brain will always give you an answer. Why does nobody like me? I promise you, your brain will give you answers to that, but you don't want to create that. What could happen next? Or what if the opposite of what I expected happens next? And then just write. And then you're going to know, I know you know this, Alex, you're going to know when it's the right scene. So
right.
that,
So you're suggesting that I brainstorm basically instead of write. So instead of just like trying to force, because I actually outline usually, not chapter by chapter, but scene by scene.
okay.
As much as possible. And then I write the points between the scenes. And usually that's the block, is where I'm like, how do I make these two scenes connect in a way that's interesting or, fun or whatever, scary or whatever it's supposed to be. And so I plan, like you said, I'm very good at planning and research and a very organized person, but so maybe that's why the uncertainty, what you were talking about, is such a challenge for me.
Well,
And it's easier to look away or to do something else than to actually face it. But I do like what you said about it meaning that what you're working on is actually big. It's big for you, but it's also maybe the project itself is worthy, and that's why you're so scared, kind of thing. Yeah,
Heck yeah.
so that
Why,
helps.
why,
Yeah.
why tell ourselves anything but that, right? And even if that project changes one life, holy moly, you got to make a fun
Yes.
project, create art, and you changed a life. Like it's like amazing. The
And I love
and
this
like
comment here too. Give yourself permission to play around with the plot, the what ifs and the maybes. Yeah.
100%.
Whatever you can do to open up your creativity in that moment. And I said, sit in your writing space, but maybe that looks like, okay, maybe I'm going to go for a walk around the block and mull this over. Maybe changing the environment will actually help, but still in the mindset of I'm thinking about the work, or not totally letting yourself off the hook there.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that, like just check your question. It's like, why can't I figure this out? You're gonna get reasons why you can't figure it out. But like, how do I make this scary? What would be scary next? So sorry. I love this stuff. That's great. Thanks, Alex, for the question.
Or just one. Yes, Michelle.
Nice. Oh, fantastic. Very appropriate. All right, Shauna, feel free.
Just to share a messy middle block experience with uncertainty, and maybe this might help. It's like advice Trevor gave me was listen, and I took that as being, for me, just really present and open and curious and just really in that moment in the book. And this week I was telling myself I'll just take a week off. And then I thought, well, I'll go to 2 weeks, and because I really had no idea what was going to happen, and I forced myself just keep going, and some of that meant just rereading some stuff. But what I was in the book, as I stayed in the story, and then I started writing where I really was blank paging it, and writing, and there was a surprise waiting for me, and that was a really nice feeling. And I thought, actually, it's advice my son gave me once in life was, well, Mom, you never know. There's a surprise tomorrow. We don't know what tomorrow brings. And I thought that's kind of what happened to me in the writing. And I thought that was,
That's beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love it getting surprised by the writing too. And yeah, just listening. Like one reframe. And Rachel, I don't know how I'm babbling on here, so you jump in and just cut me off if you got something to add to this too. My apologies. But like, I think that one reframe we can have as artists, even if it's personal or fictional writing, is that we're a part of the process, but we don't have all the answers. And that sometimes when we tell ourselves that we have to, like, I have to know what happens next in my story, we all of a sudden are like getting on ourselves. We're like saying we should have something instead of just being like, well, it's out there somewhere and it's going to come to me when it's going to come to me. So I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to wonder. And by taking that like 100% responsibility of coming up with a creative idea off your own plate, I think that alleviates a lot of pressure that can allow just things to play. You can just play a little bit then, because it's not, because listen, newsflash, if any of us could sit down and say, I want a completely original magical thought right now, we would do that all day and I'll be rich. But we don't have that ability. We show up, we listen, we play, we tune in, and what comes. And so take some of that pressure off yourself. If it's not flowing right away, just play. So I don't know if Rachel, is that how does that?
That's such a great perspective. Yeah, I love that reframe.
Okay.
I think
Cool.
Liz Gilbert said something like that in her book on writing Big Magic, that it's the story's there and you just got to let it kind of come. You have to do the work, but it will come.
I like that. That's added to my list now. Thank you. All right, Denny.
But something that Alex said that made me think about this, and for those in our writing group, you guys can go fall asleep because you heard this story already. But I'm kind of noticing that our books or our stories are just actually a series of stories that we link together to make a big story that makes sense. Scenes, scenes that we sew together or whatever. That was always something that I was fearful of, was how do you do that? Except during pandemic, we played a Wordle game. Everyone knows Wordle. And we used to play it, just find the words and share how many times it took us to get to the end of the Wordle story. And that was kind of boring. Like, it was fine, but it was boring. So then what we decided to do was you had to link every single word into a paragraph.
Ooh.
And so, you know, five, what if you had 2 words, it was easier. If you had 6, it was a lot more difficult. But we started off by writing just a sentence and something. But at the end of the pandemic, we were writing, this was a group of us, 3-paragraph stories linking all of these words together. And that gave me the confidence to do what I'm now doing, and that's trying to link all
Mhm.
these scenes together. So if ever you're stuck, grab some friends, play Wordle, and see if you guys can get a story together.
That's awesome, Vinny. And there's that play though, right? That's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yes, I love that.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, Katrina. Oh, we have Katrina and Norm. I saw them both at the same time. Yeah. Katrina, you use the hand icon. I'll give you it's your priority. Go ahead. We'll go Katrina, then Norm.
This might be a bit of a silly question and one that I probably already know the answer to. But if you're writing, or if you're attempting, or you're wanting to write a fictionalized account of some autobiographical instance, like something that is traumatic or heavy or something, at what point do you push through the discomfort? Or at what point do you realize that you're not far enough away from that to write it yet, or to be ready to write it?
Oh, okay,
I've
that's
got an
a
answer.
really good question. You
I've
have
got an answer.
an answer, Trevor?
Yeah, I've got an answer.
Yep.
So I would say there's never a wrong time to write when we're experiencing hard emotions. Doesn't mean it's for anyone else though. Like writing it for yourself at any time. I've never seen it do harm. I've only seen it help to release and discharge, and it helps us articulate things. When you want to actually create it after that, Katrina, might be when you've really let that charge get off it for a while. Maybe you write it a couple times, and when you're able to approach it and look at it from an artistic standpoint rather than just seeing the trauma in it, that might be the time, and then you'll be able to more accurately depict what you actually wanted to get across than what, like, you might be too close to it, like you said. But I think writing gives us that distance a little bit. It lets us look at it and like separate it from ourselves a bit. So that would be my initial inclination on that. And once you've got enough space of it, then you can tackle it in the way that you want. Because something that's somewhat similar is when we write a story about when we've been personally wronged, and people get wronged all the time. Sometimes it can sound a bit like bitching and moaning. Pardon my language. Sometimes it can come across as like, oh God, like this is bad, but like the way you're writing it, like it's hard to generate sympathy. And we're writing it that way because it is still so terrible. We do want to say how much it hurt, but the reader's not going to get what was inside there. And so when we can kind of write it a few times and step it back, I find writers are able to articulate it in a way that's more like showing than telling. And it's more like we come to the conclusion that that was a wrong instead of we get to the conclusion you wanted us to a little more. I don't know if that lands.
That I completely agree with that, because I have edited works where, yeah, there'll be scenes where it's just it's okay. That's incredibly heavy, and it doesn't feel like there's something in it for the reader yet. You know that there is,
Oh, that's a good way to
but
look at
there's
it.
just not quite that distance yet. So that's when I'll advise, you know what, let's just take a beat with that. And then, yeah, I've seen it come back, and then it's brilliant. And it really is just so powerful for the reader. So that
Yeah.
distance is crucial, that artistic distance. Yeah.
Because for it to be
But
that
yes,
hot,
writing for catharsis is always good. Yeah.
yeah. I
Mhm.
love that you said that it comes back even like as something amazing, because it does. Like we as readers, we want like the most honest, authentic, like we want to see the deepest sides of people because we don't get to experience that in everyday life. So yeah, if it's that hot that it's a little too, I love that there's no space for the reader yet. Once it's there, those parts, those pieces are so bloody powerful every time.
Yes.
Great
Yeah.
point. Great point. Okay, and Norm.
Yeah, and again, if this has been handled earlier, then I guess
Sure.
I'll see it in the film later. This has to do with giving feedback in, I guess, writers groups. I'm a playwright, and I'm much more active with this kind of thing within the theater. So I'll give an example of one that I learned in a playwrights group, and just I guess I'm just sharing it, and also to bounce it off of what has worked for you, because I think it's incredibly difficult. And also with prose, it's just the amount of text is denser, and I think it might be different. Anyway, in this playwrights group, I thought this worked really, really well. The facilitator said, we're going to read a scene, and then you're going to say a moment that struck you. So, sorry, an image that struck you, and then a moment, because the moment might not be an image, it might be like plot.
Mhm.
And then the third thing you get to do is you get to ask the playwright a question.
Beautiful.
And that way, it is, there are no likes, there are no dislikes, and there's no advice, and there's no you should do this, or what about trying that. And the questions also don't have to be asked by in this case it's theater, by the playwright in the moment. It's just rhetorical, and you can just take it away. But
Cool.
I found it's really good. Makes it easier to talk about stuff. But I was just wondering, I'd like to hear from people, because I haven't done a writers group intensively with the novel I'm writing. I just haven't, because I don't think I trust how that's going to work. With plays, it feels there's more space. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'm asking what kind of feedback stuff
Yep.
works in a writer's group for
Well,
a
that
novel.
yeah, well, in my experience, that's exactly how I set our writers up to talk. I want the fellow writers to be readers when they're listening to someone else's work. And what your group set up there, give me an image, give me a moment. You're not asking them to put on their editor hat or their teacher hat or their critic hat. You're asking them just to be a fan, like, what did I experience as you read? Because that's a true reader experience. And so in writing groups, it's the same thing. I try and have writers talk about, like, what did you notice? What did you like? What were you paying attention to? What did you imagine? And that by doing that, one, it's so much easier to give feedback when all I have to be is a fan and not the teacher myself,
Yeah.
right? Because I can just say, I saw this, I thought of this, I enjoyed that dialogue there. But two, it also gives in your case, the playwright, or in my case, the writer, it lets them know what they're doing well.
Yeah.
Because if everyone's like, God, I love that dialogue, it's like, okay, there's something to it. And if you loved writing that part, you're like, oh man, there's that rocket fuel that you're like, that confidence builds. You're like, okay, I liked it, they liked it. That's what I'm doing now. So I think that's highly important. That's very important. And the only way that I work in negative feedback is I wrote a scene. Okay, can you tell that the stepmother feels guilty here? Okay, now give me feedback on that. And then the feedback isn't you're a lousy writer. It's I didn't get that she was guilty at all, actually, Norm. What
Right.
what did you put in there? And then you're talking about the text, and you're not talking about like massive failures or why you shouldn't be writing
Yeah.
anymore. But that's a great
Talking about the
identification.
reader experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, Rachel. Thank you, Norm. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's some of the secret sauce to working with us and keeping us going. It's just focusing on what's the true experience. Wow. Okay. I haven't checked the chat lately. Rachel, thank you for being on that. Okay. Perfect. I don't think we missed anyone else. That's that. So any final questions? Oh.
Tell us about your community online, Trevor. Yes.
Well, I'm working with a couple of groups right now. I do weekly writing groups. I do a mastermind. I do a bunch of different things. But I'm going to be launching a community come July for a small group of people that want to dive in. That's going to be designed just for that accountability, for that feedback, for a lot of things. So if you've signed up for this, you'll get the information when it's coming. Shauna, thank you for getting me to mention it. But that's coming up. Thank you. And so you will be getting an email tomorrow, everybody, that has the link and ways to contact Rachel and I if you're ever interested in working together. We both agreed to slash our prices on a 1-to-1 if anyone wants to, if they have a current project that they're working on and they want a soundboard, either myself or Rachel, or that's totally up to you if you want to work with one of us, but all that information will be in there. If you want Rachel's contact info, it'll be in there. Mine's obviously in the email that comes. So don't be a stranger. Either of us would love to talk to you about your next step. It doesn't have to be some sort of paid call. Like, just if you have a question, send it our way. We're both interested in helping people and getting more writing out there. So thank you. Thanks for your time and your attention and your questions. This has been This has been awesome. So, okay.
A lot of fun.
Alright.
Thank you all for coming.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. I'll call it here. Have a great night. Oh, by the way, no, one of you is going to win a 30-minute one-to-one with Rachel
Oh,
and I.
right, yeah.
So
Yes.
I've got the recording. We're going to do it. We'll do the draw after. I'm not set up to do it live, but it's only for people who are here. So you are the select few. One of you will get an email and you're going to win a free 30-minute with both of us to talk about whatever the heck you want to talk about. There's no pressure. So look forward to that too in your email tomorrow. Otherwise, that's it now. Have a great night.